So this is I'm Chris, this is Janne. This is the first slide of the talk you're not going to see. And when this opportunity came up, I was like, okay, I'll do this talk. I was like, I can talk about culture things. I have this talk called 7 Habits of Highly Me People. And that turned out not to be good because of the whole Nordic connection. One of our colleagues at EUCALYPTUS made this talk called Where the WILDFINN'S Are at one point. But Janne said that was out of bounds. That was way too much. The stakes have been raised and we came up with something totally new. We're going to talk about stuff that we haven't really talked about in public before ever. Is that right? Okay. So this is going to be our promise to fail, right? That is how this talk is going to go.
And by the way, it looked very bad this morning when Chris was half an hour late. The taxi was lost. And it really looked like I don't think we're going to be here on time, but thanks to the James that, we start late, that, we ended up being perfectly on time.
Yeah. And it was, I think, us that he was mocking mostly. To the theme of communism, actually, I think you'll find we're more anarchists than communists. So we'll see how this goes. The real subtitle here is a scrapbook of stories from pioneering private cloud. That's a pretty bold statement. Let's go back in time to 2009. And actually 2009, that was a long time ago in cloud computing. Around that time, I was one of the people who created this project called EUCALYPTUS. Just as a curiosity here, EUCALYPTUS is actually an acronym, if you're ready for it. It's Elastic Utility Computing Architecture, linking your program to useful systems.
And the true story, of course, is that they had no idea, and there was a EUCALYPTUS tree from their window.
That's actually true. The leaf is actually a picture that was then photoshopped. And so if you look back at sort of what cloud computing was back then, how many clouds were there at the time? Raise your hand. Yeah, in the back, that's right, there was one. And so when we created EUCALYPTUS, the idea was, well, hey, AWS is the cloud, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a piece of software that acts like AWS, but you can run it somewhere else. It's a pretty simple idea. And so this is what everybody thought, cloud computing would be like, right? This big, unknown obelisk, which is going to take us into the future and grant us a, transcendental quantum leap forward. And so we met these guys from Nokia.
Yeah, that was as I talk about cultural shocks, that I have a history. I've been working in a small companies before, but then I went to Nokia and met these guys for the first time about 5 years ago, and I'm there. They just freshly from university, and Dan was like, we came to tell them what we want. And it's like Dan looked at us like for a while, and I heard him when he walked out. It's like, damn, these customers, who the hell do they think they are? Do they really know what they want? We've been doing this for years. I mean, we know what we want. So that was how our first meeting took place between a California Silicon Valley startup and us at that point. But the story of like what I'm telling is that how do you survive in a big corporation and try to make a startup? How do you make that happen? How do you survive in that situation? And I have a history of about 10 years working in reasonably small companies of 20, 30, 40. Got a bit tired of that, went to Nokia, and it was great. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, it was perfect because I just got 2 children at that point. So it kind of like, it was easy to do. I mean, I just fill up my calendar with meetings, and there was project planning meetings and project ending meetings and project status reviews. And the only thing I needed to do was to sit there. I went there, and then I realized, I don't even go and have to sit there. I can be on the phone, right? So I was in a phone conference and sitting there and saying yes in the end, and everybody was very happy. That took a couple of years. My bosses never knew that actually didn't do anything. But they were very happy because all projects went forward. Everywhere like, oh, yeah, these are moving forward and so on. But then eventually, I got tired of not doing anything. So I decided that, okay, what if I don't go to meetings at all? So I stopped going them, and I had a lot of free time. I went skiing outside, at winter, and I figured how long this can continue before nobody notices I'm not doing anything. And then but unfortunately, as they say, that the idle mind is the devil's advocate. So I started thinking, there must be something fun I can do with my time. And eventually, when my boss asked what I had been doing, and I kind of recruited one of my friends into it, and said, hey, what, this cloud stuff, it looks cool, at least if you don't work here soon, at least I'd probably find a job somewhere else. And as I said, we are doing some cloud. And what happened was that, we did a bit of a secret thing. So we went to our data center and told our server guys that, hey, could we have free servers? So we just stole free servers from somewhere. I don't still know. Nobody seemed to mind and noticed them, that they were missing. And we started playing around. And the only thing I promised eventually when I had guts and tell to my boss that we've been doing something not in our objectives, that I will fail. I will fail, but I will definitely learn something from it. My lucky chance was he was a good boss. So he's like, okay, go ahead, go, tell me when you're done. And that's how we got started. So when we got those free servers done, we had a big problem because we got customers. Suddenly we had people coming in. It's like, well, come on, we have a cloud with free servers. It's not like okay, Amazon was a lot smaller at that time, but I think they had more than 3 servers. That's how it kind of got started. But ever since, we have had 3 principles how we do stuff. And first one always was that on PowerPoint there are no bugs. And that was kind of at that point when we started to put software into those servers, it didn't tend to work as intended, but we had a lot of sales guys when they start hearing that, hey, those guys are doing cloud, I got IBM and I got HP and I got, everybody came out of the door and trying to tell me selling the cloud and the slides were beautiful. They all worked. There was not a single bug in those PowerPoint slides. But whenever we wanted to do something and run it, doesn't work, doesn't exist. So that was always, there in PowerPoint there are no bugs. The second, a little bit more difficult idea, you can see that these slides are done by him, so this is a cultural experiment. From beginning. These definitely are not my corporately approved slides. I had those as well. That would be another story. The second principle was that don't solve problems that don't exist or are not problems yet. And that kind of really started from our first planning meeting when we had, when we first time got the money officially to do this stuff, and we had to make a risk plan and all those documents that you need to do in a big corporation of, this is how you have to do things. And we did our risk planning, and oh my God, there were risks. All these things can go wrong. And we look at the list of, it was that size wall, and all full of things that can go wrong. And we've got depressed. Oh, this is never going to work if we think like that. We just wiped it away. Good. Oh, there's no risk anymore left. This works. So, and that was always the case that what I call this, that when you think too much of risks, you are boxing yourself in. So every time you decide that this won't work, or you have to do this, or you have to look somewhere forward, that we have to do it that way, you are kind of putting limits on what you can do, or where you could have gone. And that way you end up in a smaller and smaller cycle, and then you wonder, how did I end up here? Because most of those things what we thought gonna be a problem never was a problem. There was plenty of other problems that we knew nothing about at that moment, but typically not the ones we could invent. And the third one is my favorite. So, and it had caused some riots in some places, is that I believe that one wrong decision is better than 3 meetings. And it's really, really true. And because I just got an email 2 weeks ago into my email box. Not going into details what it was, but the thing was that we have to do it this way because we have designed and looked and meted on this subject for the last 6 months. It's wrong, but we have to do it. Yeah, but it makes no sense. And the problem was that, instead of somebody saying, hey, let's do it this way, see if it works, they just collected around the table 10 people who knew nothing about the subject, and it didn't bring any additional new things into the subject. They just met and met and met and met, and the only good thing about it was that they had another meeting about the meeting. That was always the most productive way out of the meeting was that you make another meeting. And this collective decision, and this is I think where Swedes and Finns are very different. I mean, the Swedes love to have meetings. They need to have the consensus about everybody around the table, all 500 of us, do we agree? Yes. Whereas, the Finnish guy says, like, okay, I own the company, you shut up. We are doing this way. All right. And then we don't necessarily do it that way. That's another story. My American boss just came over and she said to me and our service owner that, how it's possible? I give you direct orders and then I come here and I see that you have done absolutely the opposite. Yeah, well, it works. So, but yeah, that's how we do things. And those are the kind of 3 things we try to keep aligned with.
And so that's sort of the view that we had back in 2009. And coming back now to today, well, especially private cloud was supposed to be, like Skynet, all penetrating, all solving, all wonderful. And really, it's much more like this, right? Nobody has really figured out what's going on. Nobody is really doing it excellently well. And there's a lot of talk about what people have achieved, but often when you dig into it, under the surface, there turns out to be much less substance than it appears at first. And so the sort of new part that we're talking about here today is actually the substance of what we've done with Janne. And so if you want to explain Tsempia?
Yeah.
Tsempia?
Tsempia is a Finnish word which you, for example, say when you are, going to a sports event or somewhere like, hey, let's try that a bit harder, on doing and achieving on a game or, and it's kind of wishes good luck at the same time.
And no, it's all you.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So what they ended up with those 3 servers, as I said, like we got the first customers in the first day, and we just decided, what the heck, we just roll with it, see where it's gonna take us, and we have had about 4 years of 15% month-over-month growth, meaning that between Christmas and New Year, I got 20 racks of servers into my data center. We have grown from those 3 servers. I have now over 2,000. I'm gonna triple it this year. So you can get, we have to change everything on the way. We have built new data centers and new network backbones and new ways of monitoring it and whatever during the time. But the other thing is that okay, we got mass. Okay, not in the level of Amazon, not even probably a couple 3 zeros away at least. But it's still already quite a lot. And what is more, I think, amazing about it is that we have that speed in it. So it's not like we don't have a virtual, like a server farm. On average, in a month, we get something like 200,000 instances going through the whole system. So we have developers. We have all the time had a beginning this idea that let them innovate, let them do something fun on the cloud as well, and we don't stop them. We don't tell them what's right, what's wrong. It has to work. If they try something out, it's not their problem that they broke it. It's our problem. And every time they break something, we learn. And we have learned a lot. I also actually have this other thing where I always say that everybody is allowed to make mistakes. And that helps a lot. Some mistakes we prefer if they do it only once. So I actually have one of my lead developers came to me one morning. I know this wasn't part of the speech, but anyway. He came to me one morning and was like, Janne, I think I did something quite bad. I was like, what? Well, you know, there is this terminate all command. Yeah. Well, you know what happens when you run it as an admin? I think I deleted all the servers in the cloud. And that was a moment when it was kind of like, okay, and what did you learn? I learned that I will not have admin keys on my server, on my laptop anymore. So we did learn something from it as well, and it has only happened once. He's still working with me, so that's perfectly fine.
And so one of the things that actually is both demanded and afforded to us by the scale that they're operating at is, the opportunity with this many machines coming in to carve off a small portion of them for a short period of time and do something in order to try and solve a problem, right? So there are various dimensions on which the system has to be able to grow, and so we can pull out a piece of these resources and do a test. And so I don't know if you're familiar with the meme about bananas, but this is the banana for scale. Let's see if the video plays. So back in September, I flew to Helsinki. I spent 2 weeks there. During that time, we fixed a critical bug, rolled a new release, deployed 2 regions, and did this scale experiment. The scale experiment used 1/3 of the resources that were actually going into production. Consisted of 192 nodes, each with 40 cores, which is spelled wrong, 256 gigs of memory, 4 terabytes of disk, altogether 6 availability zones, one rack per zone. And we were actually 5,600 miles away from the data center when we actually collected the data on the experiment. The interesting part is that the reason the experiment ended is because the hardware started to fail. Because of physical problems, machines actually went offline. In fact, 30% are still? Now fine, okay. But 30% of them were not recoverable in a reasonable amount of time for us to be able to continue. So what you're seeing in the picture is the test running for one of the runs here. And each of the little lines that's shooting out is somebody actually starting an instance. Each of the dots that appears is an instance, and it's actually structured in a way that reflects the sort of topology of the system. So the bouncing around that you're seeing is actually reflective of the dynamics and the movement of capacity. So overall, the results that we got here, which are on resources comparable to other published results in the area, are, again, first time we've actually put these numbers up anywhere, but so we got 80,000 with the default configuration. Totally by accident, ran the system in the default configuration, didn't even notice, and ran 80,000 instances. These were actually Core OS instances, so if we just do some speculative math, you can think about the number of containers that could have also been running. Then with some basic configuration adjustments, we got up to 186,000. That actually exposed some bugs in the code, which we're putting back. And with some code tweaking, we did 269,000 instances. Now, and that's when you run out of time. Yeah, exactly. Well, and the system starts failing. So there is a nice part here in the video where you see failures start to occur, and actually entire availability zones, start shrinking and coming back because the machine rebooted or the network switch failed or something like that.
Yeah, and by the way, we did learn something from it. So we learned that if you put duct cables behind the rack and there's too many of them, it will overheat. So now we have them nicely on the side, and we have a little bit longer racks, and so the source issue is fixed.
So it's actually back to you now. This is whoops. I'm sorry.
Oh. So what I was supposed to say on this one?
It's about the team.
Ah, yes. Yeah, so we just visited China when we were putting a new data center there, and the first thing they asked, like, okay, so how many people you are? 100? 200? 300? Is it? Okay. So yeah, there's 16 of us. 8 of them are consultants who are helping our end users to adopt the cloud, and there are 3 administrators who are running and operating the show, who are installing and maintaining, operating every single thing. So, and you know, they have about 10 million instance hours per person per month, about 700 servers per person per month, what they do. It gets quite nice on that level. You took away the statistics, yeah.
And so that's sort of the meat of the talk, but just to reflect on the topic of the conference and the Nordic culture, you know, I'm actually, having learned some things here, starting to think that Santa Barbara, where I live, I'm Polish, but you know, I live in Santa Barbara just because the weather's a little bit nicer, is kind of like the Finland of Silicon Valley, if you would. Not at all?
Well, it's nice and warm. Nothing like Finland.
Well, in any case, if I can say something on behalf of Santa Barbara, then one last minute.
Stop. Stop it, dude. Yo, wrong country, man.
Oh, can't you see? I'm not looking for a quickie down on one knee. 100 table banquet, baby. This is my national day proposal. Finland, will you marry me, baby? Finland, we marry for each other. So you're with for never. Finland is you. You're my one and only. Please share your man. And be my wife. This is my national day proposal. Finland, will you marry me, baby? So we need to look for my box again. Så min too late box.
And so now I need to get the logo in, because that's what I promised. There we go. New logo. Thank you.